Welcome to the age of technology. Welcome to the changing tides of time. Welcome to my word, the word of history, politics, and power. And it's about analysis of events of time. For some time we've been talking about Nigeria, the Nigerian character. We've talked about the civil war. We've talked about banditry. We've talked about the ongoing insurgency in the southeast. We have looked at the body politic of Nigeria. We've talked about Africa. And that discourse is on. It is not ending yet, because nation building is a process. In that process, we are all involved. So welcome to this side of time. I am Edmondo Bilo. The program is State Affairs. I have been reading this book, The Coming Wave: Technology, Power, and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma. Here's the book I'm talking about. I've been reading it. The more I flip through the pages, the more I think about Africa in the geopolitics of technology. It's a great book written by a deep mind. I'm talking about Mustafa Suleiman, co-founder of DeepMind and Inflection AI, artificial intelligence. Why am I starting with this book? The book makes it clear that we are approaching a critical threshold in the history of mankind. Where is Africa in this analysis? The author talks about the human society being surrounded by artificial intelligence. He talks about how AI tools will carry out complex tasks, separating businesses, producing unlimited digital content, running core government services, and maintaining infrastructure. So the book talks about a world of DNA printers and quantum technologies, engineered pathogens, and autonomous weapons. If you read the book, you would read about robot assistance and abundant energy. Where is the place of Africa in all this? Here's the book I'm talking about. The Coming Wave: Technology, Power, and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma. So yesterday, I began to write an article entitled Technological Decoupling and its Geopolitical Implications for Africa. I'm not done with the article, but I feel I should share my ideas with you. So in the article, I'm making the point that in recent years, the global landscape has witnessed a significant shift towards technological decoupling, primarily driven by escalating tensions between major powers such as the United States and China. This struggle, characterized by efforts to reduce mutual technological dependencies and foster independent technological ecosystems has profound implications for global trade, innovation, and geopolitical stability. So, the theme of this show is geopolitics. When Asia transforms the world, why not when Africa transforms the world? I'm just thinking. Are you thinking along? As we grapple with issues of hunger, insecurity, poor governance, the rest of the world is moving so fast. We are not moving at their pace. We are consuming their energy. And as we consume, they generate more energy to overcome us. So in my article, I'm making the point that while much of the discourse has centered around the direct participants in the decoupling, the ramifications extend far beyond, particularly impacting emerging economies and regions like Africa. I'm making the point that Africa finds itself at a crucial juncture in this evolving dynamic. Historically positioned as a technology consumer rather than a producer, the continent faces unique challenges and opportunities as global powers realign their technological strategies. What is Tinubu's strategy? What is William Ruto's technological strategy? What is the strategy of Ghana? You see, the pursuit of digital sovereignty by African nations, coupled with their aspirations to leapfrog traditional developmental hurdles through technology, intersect with the broader context of technological decoupling. Somebody is saying, what is Edmond saying? Technological decoupling. You know, when I talk about decoupling, I'm talking about that mutual technological dependencies. And now there's this fight to foster independent technological ecosystems. You know, China wants to have its own ecosystem. It doesn't want to rely on America. You know, at the beginning, we were talking about a global village, one technological space, one internet, where once you move in, you are connecting with everybody. But now, nationalism has come in, and that is decoupling. Countries are saying, no, we want to run our own internet and protect it in our own interest. So that is what I mean by decoupling. But at the moment, it is China and the United States that have the capacity to engage in this decoupling, including the European Union. But the European Union is behind a bit. They have just woken up. India is trying to find its footing. But no country in Africa is capable of decoupling. Do we need technological decoupling? Or we need one technological word where we can all tap into and harness some energy for development from? These are the issues. So the point I make here is that the stage for an in-depth examination of how technological decoupling influences Africa's geopolitical landscape has come. Everyone interested in knowledge and the future must be interested in what is going on in the technological space. If Africa fails to wake up, Africa will be colonized again, but it's in a different form. So the article I'm working on explores the strategic choices African nations must make amidst competing technological standards and influences from the United States, China, and the European Union. The work I am looking at delves into the potential economic and security implications of aligning with different technological blocks and the overarching quest for digital sovereignty within the African continent. If they cut the cable again, what happens? I'm not saying somebody cut the cable, but if they decided to do the undersea cable, Africa can be blackened out of the world technological ecosystem. Does Africa have its own technological ecosystem that it can use to bargain with the rest of the world? If you are listening to me, it should begin to worry you that beyond the quest for food, we must look ahead to say, do we have homegrown technology to compete with the rest of the world? So by the time I'm done with my research and article, I must have been able to create an understanding of the geopolitical implications of technological decoupling for Africa, because I know it requires deep analysis of several factors. And one of the factors is the readiness of African digital infrastructure. Do we have that infrastructure? Another factor I'm looking at is the role of international partnerships. I'm also looking at the impact on local innovation ecosystems and the broader socio-economic outcomes. So this work aims to illuminate the pathways through which Africa can navigate these complexities, leveraging technological advancement to foster sustainable development and geopolitical resilience. Are you in this class of politics, history, and power? So we are now in the age of technological politics. It has always been there, but we have moved to the new age. We talk about the fourth industrial revolution, but we are gradually moving into the fifth. The fourth industrial revolution will be short because technology is growing at a very fast pace, and we need to catch up. The reason I'm recommending this book to you, The Coming Wave, Technology, Power, and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma. You'll find it on udarabooks.com. On udarabooks.com. I advise you to get this book and read it so that you will be in touch, if you are not in touch yet, with what is going on at a global level with regard to technology. Technology is growing at an exponential level, and Africa is being left behind. You should be worried. And Asia is transforming the world. Welcome to this class. You can also get this book through our WhatsApp numbers. So the number will be flashed on the screen, and you can contact us on WhatsApp, and you get a copy of this work. I'll be recommending more books to you as we go. I've just talked about Africa. So in my research, I'm also trying to understand one of the greatest geostrategic challenges of our age. China's technological rise and global push to dominate the vital systems upon which militaries, markets, and modern societies depend. I am looking at that, and I've made some points already. I'm saying that China's technological growth and its concerted efforts to assert dominance over the vital systems upon which militaries, markets, and modern societies depend has led to one of the greatest geostrategic challenge of our age. This represents a seismic shift in the global power dynamics with implications for the future of international relations. Look at another book I am reading for my research. Look at this book, The Digital Silk Road, China's Quest to Wire the World and Win the Future. Can you see the title of that work? The Digital Silk Road, China's Quest to Wire the World and Win the Future. It is written by Jonathan Hillman. Jonathan Hillman. This book is not available on udarabooks.com. We have run out of copies. But if you can find it anywhere, find it. It's a great read. It opens you up to what China is planning. Where's the place of Africa in this? So at the heart of China's strategy lies a relentless pursuit of technological innovation and advancement. Over the past few decades, China has made significant strides in various fields, ranging from artificial intelligence and quantum computing to 5G telecommunications and space exploration. Through substantial investment in research and development, coupled with strategic partnerships and acquisitions, China has rapidly narrowed the technological gap with traditional powerhouses such as the United States. What about Africa? Are you thinking like me? What is Makinde thinking about? Does Hope Uzodinma understand what is going on? What about Babajide Sanwo-Olu? What about governors in northern Nigeria? Are they following what is going on? Central to China's ambition is the concept of technological sovereignty, which entails reducing dependency on foreign technologies and establishing indigenous capabilities across key sectors. Is that not what I call technological decoupling? Follow me as I go. The drive for self-reliance is epitomized by initiatives like Made in China 2025, a comprehensive plan aimed at achieving dominance in strategic industries such as robotics, aerospace, and biotechnology. By fostering homegrown innovation and nurturing domestic champions, China seeks to bolster its resilience against external disruptions and assert greater influence on the global stage. What about Nigeria? Is Nigeria thinking like China? I have just mentioned Made in China 2025. 2025 is next year. The microphone I'm using to talk is not made in Africa. The camera before me is not made in Africa. The tripod stand, not made in Africa. Every tools in this studio are not made in Africa. I mean the electronic devices. My telephone is not made in Africa. Africa is sleeping and Africa must wake up at this time. Our educational system must be such that allows for innovation and research. Are we in this game? Hey. China's technological rise is closely intertwined with its geopolitical aspirations, as evidenced by initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative. Through infrastructure development and digital connectivity, China is moving into different continents of the world. China seeks to extend its influence and shape the emerging global order. By exporting its technological standards and platforms, China aims to wield significant leverage over partner countries, thereby reshaping the geopolitical landscape in its favor. Jonathan Hillman, in his book The Digital Silk Road, asserts that with its reach expanding rapidly, China may seem destined to host the headquarters of the next information empire. Did you hear that? That China seems destined to host the headquarters of the next information empire. What about Africa? What about Kenya? What about Tanzania, South Africa, Zimbabwe? What about Togo, Benin Republic? Where is Africa in this loop? Look, you see, China's rise has raised concerns among other major powers, particularly the United States and its allies. There are growing apprehensions about the implications of China's dominance in critical technologies, including cybersecurity risk, intellectual property theft, and the erosion of democratic norms. Moreover, China's assertive behavior in the South China Sea and its use of technology for surveillance and social control have heightened anxieties about its intentions and ambitions. In response, countries around the world are recalibrating their strategies to navigate the complexities of a technocentric world order. Technocentric world order, that is where we are moving to. Efforts to diversify supply chains, enhance cybersecurity measures, and strengthen regulatory frameworks are underway to mitigate the risk associated with over-reliance on Chinese technology. I'm not talking about Africa here. I'm talking about Europe. They are trying to check the rise of China. Africa is not playing in these geopolitical dynamics. Africa is overwhelmed with the question of poverty, violence, disease. And it has always been like that. Awake, Africa. If you look at what is going on, there is growing consensus among like-minded nations to forge closer partnership and promote democratic alternatives that uphold transparency, accountability, and respect for human rights. As we navigate the contours of this evolving geostrategic landscape, it is imperative to adopt a broader understanding of China's technological rise and its implication for global stability and prosperity. While China's rise presents immense opportunities for innovation and collaboration, it also poses significant challenges that demand collective action and cooperation on a global scale. By embracing the principles of openness, inclusivity, and cooperation, Africa can key in and harness the transformative potential of technology to build a more resilient and equitable world for future generations. Look at this book. This book is entitled Coders: Who They Are, What They Think, and How They Are Changing Our World. Coders: Who They Are, What They Think, and How They Are Changing Our World. You see? You see this work, written by Cliff Thompson. It is a book you should be reading. If you have children that are above the age of 13, it is a book you should be buying for them. If you are interested in the future, you should be reading books like this. If you want Africa to participate in this global innovative system, you should be understanding the terms in this book. I recommend this book to you. Visit udarabooks.com and you would get a copy. Or you can contact us on our WhatsApp numbers. What is the book about? From revolution on Twitter, now X, to romance on Tinder, we live in a world constructed of code, and coders are the ones who built it for us. You are using Facebook, right? You are watching me on X, right? You are watching me on YouTube. Coders built it for us. So in this book, acclaimed tech writer Cliff Thompson offers an illuminating reckoning with the most powerful tribe in the world today, and who is part of that tribe. Computer programmer. How many computer programmers do we have in Africa? Computer programmers. We are asking, who are they? How are they thinking? And what should give us pause? So if you read this book, Cliff Thompson ponders the morality and politics of code, including its implications for civic life and the economy. So he uses this book to unpack the surprising history of the field, beginning with the first coders, brilliant and pioneering women who were later written out of history. To understand the world today, we need to understand code and its consequences. With this book, Cliff Thompson offers a crucial insight into the heart of the machine. I am reading this book. I am reading this book because I'm looking into the future. I'm researching into the future. So you can get this book on udarabooks.com. Don't shy away from it. Buy it for your child, your friends. Let's read. As China emerges, we'll talk about the American century. The American century. What is the American century about? This is the age of Asia. Are we coming to the end of the American century? The 20th century was American century, and it was expressed in superior military capabilities and technological innovations. At the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the United States became unrivaled, pulling diplomatic and political strings and consolidating its preeminent status. It is the exuberance of a hyperpower in a unipolar world bent on establishing its politics and economy as the images of the world. The United States dollar became the world's reserved currency as the United States dominated global institutions like the United Nations, NATO, World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Never in world history had a country commanded such influence. The United States military expenditure almost doubled that of the rest of the world. And this is what I call military inequality. I'll tell you more, but let me bring in Professor Alaba Ogunso, a renowned scholar Alaba Ogunsowo is a global scholar on international politics. At some point, he became Nigeria's ambassador to different African countries. But when it comes to policy formation, the Alaba Ogunsowos have done their best to place Africa in the global map of positive competition. One of the luckiest things that happened to me was that I had the privilege to be tutored by Professor Alaba Ogunsowo. He was not only my teacher, he supervised my BSc project in international relations. And it was a thorough supervision. He was a huge influence. And whenever I saw him, I knew I had to make first class in international relations and politics to make him smile. Fortunately, I did. But the point I'm making is that men like Alaba Ogunsowo have a deep understanding of the world. Yet, Nigeria don't know how to put into use global scholars like Ogunsowo. Okay. I remember about 5 years ago, I asked him about the possibility of a biological warfare. I also wanted to know his assessment of China's rise to challenge America. As China rises, watch out for India. But let me promise you, if we have the opportunity to take power someday, we will compete with the rest of the world. Alaba Ogunsowo on State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Is there a possibility of a biological warfare in the 21st century?
The U.S. has the largest stock of biological weapons. So does Russia have biological weapons, and I believe China behind them. However, the question of the use of biological weapons is problematic. The impact may not stop where you expect it to stop. If you want to use deadly weapons, then that's designed to wipe off millions of people. And the political decision of that nature would be required to be taken at the highest level of the country, not just of scientific experts, but by the president of the country concerned that we want to use biological weapons. And generally the world has banned them, that they should not be used. But some of these superpowers still have these biological weapons. No other country, if it has any rational leadership, would decide that we want to use biological weapons to achieve what objective?
With regard to this coronavirus, Chinese are being labeled bioterrorists. Is that appropriate at this time?
Of course, it doesn't make sense. But as I said to you, anything political goes, and those who want to use the expression would use that. Why would they, carry such attack, carry it out against themselves?
Is China a threat to the United States' economic and political hegemony?
Americans say it's a threat. They say that openly. That because of, for example, now when it came out with the Made in China 2025, that is predicting that it will be number one in technology in the world. That's why they're also pursuing this question of 5G, which Huawei is championing. They don't want it because it's far ahead of American technology, and they have dominated the 3G and the 4G in the past 20 years. Now this 5G is quantum ahead of 3G and 4G. And so the Americans have openly said, and they continue to say, that China is a threat to them in terms of the economic, in terms of the economic dominance, and in terms of technological advancement. They've said that, but that does not mean that therefore they would go and use biological weapons to slow down Chinese efforts.
Do you see China becoming a world hegemon?
I don't see it happening, although some people say that if it gets to the point where it is like the United States, that it too will begin to behave like a hegemon. But they've always denied that all the time, that they would never get to that particular point. The U.S. is far ahead, but what makes the U.S. a hegemon is that it tries to neutralize others, to ride options over others. It has almost 800 military bases outside of the United States in the territories of other countries. That's what makes it a hegemon. China does not have that. I hope you understand. The hegemon in terms of what you are able to do and what you are willing to do and what you are seen doing with others. The way they are using the currency, for example, you impose sanctions on Iran, and you say you cannot use American dollars to buy this, whereas all other countries use American dollar. And you say whoever trades with Iran, we are going to punish that country with American dollars, and so they move back from selling medicine or anything to Iran with dollars, because America will punish them. That's the hegemon. No other country is doing that. No other country is in a position to do that, I should say.
Some are saying with the Silk Road that China is constructing, that poses a challenge even to the United States.
Well, the United States has come up with an alternative that they should build infrastructure. What China has said is that looking at the historical linkages between that country and the world, that there were routes through which trade traversed, and they want to rebuild those. 3 days ago, a huge, long train of goods, consumer goods and things like that, left China for the United Kingdom. It's train, and it's going to get there in 2 weeks' time. That's part of the thing that we're talking about, and if those roads, the infrastructures and the rest of them are put on ground, it is possible for these other countries through these roads go to also put things on the rail and the roads and sell. If your country is opened up as a result of roads and rail, that enables you, in terms of whatever you manufacture, to also send it wherever the Chinese good is going. You can send it also there. So it's a challenge to all those countries that agree to cooperate, and it's a large number of countries that have agreed to cooperate with China on this Belt and Road Initiative and the Silk Road that we talk about, the Silk Road. Yes, the U.S. doesn't like it because it's showing that the U.S. is not providing leadership in the world. If you take Djibouti, where you've had the biggest French military base, and then American base, and then Japanese, and now the Chinese have been allowed to establish there. It was only when the Chinese got there that it began to build infrastructure and other things. Stop these other countries from building what the British needed all this year. They didn't do that.
Yes, that was Alabao Gunso, professor of international politics, trying to break down the struggle going on between the United States and China. We are moving into a new world. Is it a world of the fall of America? I don't think so. But it's a world of the rise of the rest. It doesn't mean America is falling. It means others are rising. And America is refusing to fall. But others are rising very fast. And it's about China. As America rose, It went into alliance with Europe. But that alliance almost became insignificant because America redefined the principle of national sovereignty. You could see what the United States did with the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq in response to 9/11. That is the redefinition of sovereignty. That nations can be invaded and taken over. In 2004, the neoconservative Charles Krauthammer wrote these words. Let me quote him. He said, on December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union died and something new was born, something utterly new, a unipolar world dominated by a single superpower, unchecked by any rival, and with decisive reach in every corner of the world. This is staggering in history, not seen since the fall of Rome. That is a description of America's dominance. America's rapid economic growth between 1870 and 1950 would see it account for 18.9% of global GDP in 1913. And America accounted for 27.3% of global GDP in 1950. You can see the steady rise. It peaked at 35% in 1944 and hovered around 20% at the turn of the 21st century because others began to rise. It seemed that the United States' hegemonic influence was unassailable. But with the emergence of New Era China, things might have taken new shapes. Is it the end of overwhelming American power? This expected transition to a stronger multipolar world order, with China a commanding influence, is the continuation of the pattern that threw off the United States as a dominant power after World War II. Europe had used the opportunity of colonialism and industrial revolution to shape the world in Western image until its gradual decline began after World War I and took a very sharp dive after World War II. Having been colonized by Britain, the fact that the new world created by the United States bore the image of Europe made it a continuation of Western influence. The West would become the United States, Canada, Australia, and countries of Western Europe like Germany, Britain, France. It was this alliance, led by America, that won the Cold War. They displaced the Soviet Union as an ultra-hegemonic influence. The Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia was the strongest part of the Soviet Union. Russia controlled the Soviet Union. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Georgia, Uzbekistan. But the Soviet Union collapsed, and the federating units went on their own, and Russia stands alone today. Well, you can see, Russia still feels that Ukraine, it's critical to its survival. Therefore, the Russian-Ukrainian war. Oh, there is a book I didn't come with. Why did I forget that book? Lovely book. I love that book. It is a book written by Martin Jack entitled When China Rules the World. When China rules the world. We have 3 copies of that book. I bought that book 10 years ago. Was it 10 years ago? You know, these days the way the year flies. Let me say averagely 6 years ago. Yeah. So I still have 3 copies. I archived them. I just said I'm going to archive this book for the future in case anything happens to one of my copies. But I'm ready to give out at least 3 copies of that book. Yes, you can contact us on WhatsApp. And when I say give out, yes, you know what I mean. You give me something and I'll give you the book. But not something equal to the price of the book. Martin Jack, in his book When China Rules the World, argues, I quote, "The meltdown of some of Wall Street's largest financial institutions in September 2008 underlined the shift in economic power from the West, with some of the fallen giants seeking further support from the sovereign wealth funds and the United States government stepping in to save the mortgage titans, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mac, partly in order to reassure countries like China, which had invested huge sums of money in them." He says if China had started to withdraw these monies, it would have caused a collapse in the value of the dollar. Even China is investing in the United States. The point Jack makes is that the sovereign wealth funds sustaining the United States economy at the height of the crisis shows the disparity between cash-rich East Asian states from decades of surplus and the United States suffering from years of deficit financing, proving that what was termed a global financial crisis was truly Western financial crisis. You get the point? As Britain, France, and Italy were in the midst of the crisis, China posted double-digit growth rates with a banking sector with healthy balance sheets. But that is changing a bit in China. If Goldman Sachs 2007 projections are considered, by 2025, the Chinese economy will be almost equal to that of the United States. And by 2050, China will become the largest economy, doubling the size of that of the United States, in second position. India follows in third, and Japan in fourth. Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Indonesia follow in that order, with only 2 European countries of Britain and Germany in 9th and 10th position respectively. Can you see? Power has shifted to Asia. That if you follow the Goldman Sachs prediction, Britain and German economy will be behind Brazil, Mexico, Russia, and Indonesia in the years to come. No African country is mentioned. Somehow, we'll fix that. Yes, we will. This is an indication of a shift in the balance of global economic power. Former Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, in her January 2018 speech, that was 6 years ago, in that speech to the Republican Congress members in Philadelphia, Theresa May recognized a changing world order. She talked about a post-Western world. And when you listen to her, she brings a broader understanding into the subject we are discussing. Theresa May.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
The end of the Cold War did not give rise to a new world order. It did not herald the end of history. It did not lead to a new age of peace, prosperity, and predictability in world affairs. For some, the citizens of Central and Eastern Europe in particular, it brought new freedom. But across the world, ancient ethnic, religious, and national rivalries that had been frozen through the decades of the Cold War, returned. New enemies of the West and our values, in particular in the form of radical Islamists, have emerged. And countries with little tradition of democracy, liberty, and human rights, notably China and Russia, have grown more assertive in world affairs. The rise of the Asian economies, China, yes, but democratic allies like India too, is hugely welcome. Billions are being lifted out of poverty, and new markets for our industries are opening up. But these events, coming as they have at the same time as the financial crisis and its fallout, as well as a loss of confidence in the West following 9/11 and difficult military interventions in Iraq and Afghanistan, have led many to fear that in this century we will experience the eclipse of the West. But there is nothing inevitable about that. Other countries may grow stronger. Big, populous countries may grow richer. And as they do so, they may start to embrace more fully our values of democracy and liberty. But even if they do not, our interests will remain. Our values will endure. And the need to defend them and project them will be as important as ever. So we, our two countries together, have a responsibility to lead. Because when others step up as we step back, it is bad for America, for Britain, and the world. It is in our interests, those of Britain and America together, to stand strong together to defend our values, our interests, and the very ideas in which we believe. This cannot mean a return to the failed policies of the past. The days of Britain and America intervening in sovereign countries in an attempt to remake the world in our own image are over. But nor can we afford to stand idly by when the threat is real and when it is in our own interests to intervene. We must be strong, smart, and hard-headed, and we must demonstrate the resolve necessary to stand up for our interests.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Theresa May there, talking about our post-Western world. She made that speech as the Prime Minister of Britain in January 2018 in Philadelphia in the United States of America. It is not about exaggerating the emergence of the West and overstating the decline of the West, but it is a reminder of the lessons learned from issues of the past that made the West the powerhouse of world economy. Note that a precondition for being a hegemonic power, including the ability or otherwise to preside over a formal or informal empire, is economic strength. Military strength is tied to economic strength. So Nigeria's economy is weak. It cannot be a hegemonic power. When your economy is weak, when the land is riddled with poverty, it cannot be an international influence. You saw the way Niger called our bluff. Burkina Faso called the bluff of ECOWAS countries. Because ECOWAS as a bloc is not powerful enough. The economy is weak. Even when the threatened blockade of Niger and Burkina Faso economies, yes, there were some impact, but they survived. African countries are weak. We need to make them strong. Meanwhile, the probability that the rivalry between great powers in world politics is cyclical is high. Hegemons periodically come and go in world politics. How? From 1495 to 1540, Portugal was the dominant state in world affairs, competing with France, England, and Spain. The War of Italy and the Indian Ocean from 1494 to 1517 led to the Treaty of Tordesillas of 1517. After this period, Spain rose to outshine Portugal in European affairs, which can be likened to world affairs, as Europe was the center of great power rivalry. With the Truce of 1608, the Church became a dominant player in the politics of Europe. The Roman Empire led this stage following the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648. And that 30 Years' War caused the defeat of the Habsburg dynasty in Spain and Austria-Hungary. After the 30-Year War, a new order was born with the Peace of Westphalia. Napoleon Bonaparte's France dominated Europe from 1792 to 1815 until he was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The Concert of Europe is the peace deal that launched what has been described as the first international organization to check the excesses of countries threatening global peace. From France to Britain, Germany, Japan, and even Italy, and later the United States and the Soviet Union, there is the subject of balance of power in world affairs. Another phase is unfolding. You would note that this periodic change in the balance of power politics was accompanied by wars in the past. The Second World War threw up America as a superpower. What kind of war would throw up the next hegemons? I'm looking at technological war. Technological war. The reason I have come with technological books for you. Have you read this book? Blockchain Revolution. How the technology behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is changing the world. You know, we are talking about Nigerian government versus Binance or Binance. That is again, Binance is about cryptocurrency. The Tinubu government says Binance could speculate about the naira and the dollar and indirectly control the economy. It is the power of tech. Would the Tinubu government be able to defeat Binance? Do we have the technological know-how to counter Binance and other intruding technologies? By the way, have you studied blockchain? Read this book, Blockchain Revolution. Classical work, written by father and son. It is one of the best books on technology in the 21st century. Blockchain Revolution, how the technology behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is changing the world. Blockchain technology will change the world. In fact, it already has. Blockchain is the technology driving the future of the economy. It's best known for powering Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But it has the potential to transform every industry it touches. It allows virtually anything with value, from stocks, music, and intellectual property to health records and even identities, to be stored in a secure and anonymous system that no one person or company owns. From birth and death certificates to insurance claims, land titles, and even votes, data will never be managed in the same way again. Written by Don Tapscott, the author of Wikinomics, and his son, blockchain expert Alex Tapscott, Blockchain Revolution is not only an essential and simple introduction to a complex subject, it is also a vital guide to how it will change all our lives. Read it or be left behind. Read it or be left behind. Blockchain Revolution, a classical read. Get your copy on udarabooks.com. udarabooks.com. Or you contact us on WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp numbers are on the screen. We have copies for you. I have introduced 4 books to you. Coders, Cliff Thompson. Who are they? What they think? And how they are changing our world. Yellow books. Yellow like me. All right. I've introduced that to you. I have introduced the Digital Silk Road to you. China's Quest to Wire the World and Win the Future by Jonathan Hillman. We have run out of copies. We don't have this anymore. But find it. I recommend it to you. Get a copy of this book. If you don't read it, you'll be left out. This is the one I'm presently reading. The Calming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman. Technology, Power, and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma. Great read. We are approaching a critical threshold in the history of mankind. So the Calming Wave is a great read. Technology, Power, and the 21st Century's Greatest Dilemma. Those are the books I have recommended to you. I am not done. More books are coming your way. Read about tech. Understand the new word. It's a word of knowledge. Is Africa playing in that word? Let's bring back Theresa May, a former British Prime Minister. You know, she talks about world alliance. She talks about a changing world order. Theresa May on State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
And whether it is the security of Israel in the Middle East or the Baltic states in Eastern Europe, we must always stand up for our friends and allies in democratic countries that find themselves in tough neighbourhoods too. We each have different political traditions. We will sometimes pursue different domestic policies, and there may be occasions on which we disagree. But the common values and interests that bring us together are hugely powerful. And as your foremost friend and ally, we support many of the priorities your government has laid out for America's engagement with the world. It is why I join you in your determination to take on and defeat Daesh and the ideology of Islamist extremism that inspires them and many other terrorist groups in the world today. It is in both our national interests to do so. This will require us to use the intelligence provided by the finest security agencies in the world, and it will require the use of military might. But it also demands a wider effort, because one of the lessons of fighting terrorism in the last 15 years or so is, yes, killing terrorists can save innocent lives. But until we kill the idea that drives them, the ideology, we will always have to live with this threat. And as they are defeated on the ground, the terrorists are exploiting the internet and social media to spread this ideology that is preying on vulnerable citizens in our own countries, inspiring them to commit acts of terror in our own cities. That is why the UK has led the world in developing a strategy for preventing violent extremism, and why the British and American governments are working together to take on and defeat the ideology of Islamist extremism. I look forward to working with the President and his administration to step up our efforts still further in order to defeat this evil ideology. But of course, we should always be careful to distinguish between this extreme and hateful ideology and the peaceful religion of Islam and the hundreds of millions of its adherents, including millions of our own citizens, and those further afield, who are so often the first victims of this ideology's terror. And nor is it enough merely to focus on violent extremism. We need to address the whole spectrum of extremism, starting with the bigotry and hatred that can so often turn to violence. Yet ultimately, to defeat Daesh, we must employ all of the diplomatic means at our disposal. That means working internationally to secure a political solution in Syria and challenging the alliance between the Syrian regime and its backers in Tehran. When it comes to Russia, as so often, it is wise to turn to the example of President Reagan, who during his negotiations with his opposite number, Mikhail Gorbachev, used to abide by the adage, trust but verify. With President Putin, my advice is to engage, but beware. There is nothing inevitable about conflict between Russia and the West, and nothing unavoidable about retreating to the days of the Cold War. But we should engage with Russia from a position of strength, and we should build the relationships, systems and processes that make cooperation more likely than conflict. And that, particularly after the illegal annexation of Crimea, give assurance to Russia's neighbouring states that their security is not in question. We should not jeopardise the freedoms that President Reagan and Mrs. Thatcher brought to Eastern Europe by accepting President Putin's claim that it is now in his sphere of influence.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
That's Theresa May, former British Prime Minister, making that speech in 2018 in the United States in her position as the Prime Minister of Britain. Let's go through some lines in Kishore Mahbubani's book entitled The New Asian Hemisphere, The Irresistible Shift of Global Power to the East. The Singaporean scholar and diplomat talks of how the rise of the West transformed the world. And in the book, he predicts that the rise of Asia will wrought a deep transformation on the world. Mahbubani says Japan and Israel, as the only two modern societies in Asia half a century ago, inspired transformative changes on the continent and set the example that the emerging economic powers in Asia embraced. He makes the point that first, Japan was emulated by the four Asian tigers, that is South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. When China was awakened to the rise of the countries within its axis, it joined them in its own four modernization programs. China's success has in turn inspired the rise of India, Mahbubani asserts. He says, now billions of Asians are marching towards modernity. The sporadic rise of Asian countries is the profit from a forward-looking leadership devoid of poverty of reason. Limbs like Jawaharlal Nehru of India, Mao Zedong of China, Deng Xiaoping of China, Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. What about Mahathir Mohamad of Malaysia? These leaders propagated Asian values. These values constitute a dominant worldview that define the globalization of the 21st century. A leader like Mahathir Mohamad, during the Asian financial crisis of 1997, led Malaysia into what Chiedu Morgalu calls frontal confrontation with globalization. He set a framework for the political and economic development of Malaysia, making the country a model of success in the new world. Who is that transformative leader that Nigeria has produced? Help me with the answer, if you can. I'm laying more emphasis on China today. But Japan did so well that Japan is still doing well. China is pushing the boundaries of speed, endurance, and civil engineering. China has encouraged and supported her companies to be among the first in the world to introduce new technology, such as autonomous driverless train operations and advanced signaling and control technology. You can visit China and travel in the driverless bullet trains from Beijing and Jiangsu in northern Hebei province. You will feel it. The trains are capable of hitting speeds up to 350 kilometers per hour, making them the world's fastest autonomous trains. You know what this does? It reduces travel time for the 174-kilometer journey from 3 hours to less than 60 minutes. They say the fastest trains complete the trip in just 45 minutes. A journey that would take more than 3 hours in the past can now be completed in just 45 minutes through the bullet trains. Do you know what this would do to business, commerce, and industry in a serious country? It brings progress. That cluster has the world's deepest high-speed railway station, situated 102 meters underground. A train station situated 102 meters underground. These autonomous trains are fitted with seats with 5G touchscreen control panels, intelligent lighting, thousands of safety sensors, and removable seats for passengers in wheelchairs. They come with facial recognition technology. There are robots at the train stations to help travelers with navigation, luggage, and check-in. This is mind-boggling. China is blowing my mind why Buhari, Tinubu, and his collaborators caused the Nigerian people to fall into depression, anguish, poverty, and violence. As I speak, China is working on a new high-speed maglev train that is capable of reaching speeds of 620 kilometers per hour. Is it Tinubu's Nigeria that is thinking in that line? The Nigerian system pretends to be democratic, yet breeds violence of unimaginable proportion. China's political system is unique to it, and it brings progress. As progress expands, I see China reforming its political system to accommodate its development. Yes, China is not a democracy like America, but its system is meeting the needs of its people to a large extent. In this April 2015 lecture, entitled What Happens When China Becomes Number One, Singaporean scholar Kishore Mahbubani explains the driving force behind China's exploit. So Kishore Mahbubani comes in to help us define China.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
So if it's not communism that they're trying to promote, what is it they're trying to promote? And the simple answer is that they would just like to revive Chinese civilization. Indeed, if there's one thing that motivates the Chinese leaders, it is their memory of the many humiliations that China has suffered for over a century, as you know, from 1842, the Opium War, to roughly 1949, or you can even go beyond that. And the one thing that drives the Chinese is a simple credo which says, no more humiliation for China. That's the great motivation. And indeed, Xi Jinping, when he spoke to UNESCO in March 2014, this is what he said are the goals of the Chinese people. He said the Chinese people are striving to fulfill the Chinese dream of the great renewal of the Chinese nation. The Chinese dream is about the prosperity of the country, the rejuvenation of the nation, and the happiness of the people. It reflects both the ideal of the Chinese people today and our time-honored tradition to seek constant progress. The Chinese dream will be realized through balanced development and mutual reinforcement of material and cultural progress. Without the continuation and development of civilization or the promotion and prosperity of culture, the Chinese dream will not come true. Unquote. And I think in those few sentences, he brilliantly captured what is the heart of the aspirations of the Chinese people, to move away from an era of having been humiliated for a long time to an era where they once again feel proud about Chinese civilization and what it can accomplish. And indeed, if the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, could change its name to CCP, the Chinese Civilization Party, then I think it would be a more accurate description of the goals and aspirations of the CCP. But of course, while this may be the motivations, many in the West continue to believe that China's approach is flawed because it is not changing its political system. And you can read in, whatever, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Economist, there's this constant belief that the best thing that can happen to China is to have a collapse of the Chinese Communist Party and have a democratic system. The one slightly provocative point I'm going to make here is be careful what you wish for. Because if the Chinese political system becomes more democratic, it could very well become far more nationalist and far more aggressive as a power. And the great paradox here is that the Chinese Communist Party is actually delivering a global public good by restraining Chinese nationalism. And if you didn't have a strong Chinese Communist Party in charge, you might actually get a more nationalist, a more assertive China. So I believe that it's actually in global interest to allow the Chinese Communist Party to evolve and change in its own way. And that way, I think we will have China that focuses on economic growth and focuses on strengthening its civilization.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Professor Kishore Mahbubani spoke while delivering the 2015 Albert Gordon Lecture at the Kennedy School of Politics at Harvard. Mahbubani at the time was the Dean, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. Look at this book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, written by Yuval Noah Harari. 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. If you read this book, you will learn some lessons of how the global system is changing. There is surely no one alive who is born ecological catastrophe. What do we do about the epidemic of fake news or the threat of terrorism? How should we prepare our children for the future of